So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Tashi Getzeling Monday Maine Moment. And we are really happy to be able to come together on the Zoom format and from here at the beautiful shrine room at Tashi Getzeling. And who knows, hopefully maybe in a few months we'll even be able to do a few things in person, maybe some walking meditations together over nearby for those of us who are in Maine can join and go to Pinelands to do some outdoor meditation. But in the meantime, it's lovely to greet you from this beautiful space in the Tashi Getzeling Shrine Room in Maine, Gray Maine, the heart of it all. It's our town slogan. We didn't make that one up, but we'll go with it. So welcome. And tonight we're going to really focus on some shamatha. The last few Mondays, we've been talking a little bit about mind and what is mind? What is it that we're actually doing in mind training? And what is the definition of mind in our practice? So let's just start our session together. Let's take a minute to just gather our motivation and make sure that our intention is very pure, our motivation is very pure, our dedication is very pure. We're really just practicing right now for our own happiness, our own peace of mind, so that we can transform any difficulties that are coming up in our own mind stream with compassion, with awareness, and with wisdom, so that we can become really actually very effective by becoming a much happier person in our own mind stream and not worrying so much about changing the world, but just the only one thing we can change in this world is our own mind. So this is where our real practice is. So just take a few relaxing breaths to bring yourself into this moment. Peace of mind. Drop whatever has happened and come up throughout the day or over the weekend. Just allow yourself now, just sitting here in this space that we have to share with each other. A beautiful, pure intention to cultivate as much peace of mind as possible and keep expanding that which you've already been able to cultivate. A message from our spiritual founder, Kensor Rinpoche Lobsang Tsetin, is to have us all focus much more on our gratitude for our life and all of the excellent conditions we have to have food, to have shelter, to even have a spiritual practice, to have good companions on the path, to have our health, and to have the causes and conditions to be able to take time to dedicate to practice to Dharma. And we all know very well that that's not the case for so many beings right now on the planet who are in very difficult circumstances. They've never heard of Dharma, they have no spiritual practice. Many beings are fearful for their lives. They're being hunted for their bodies. They're being raised in farms to be eaten. They're living in places where there's aggression. Many beings have no spiritual practice and they hear the news and they feel complete terror. They can't sleep at night. They have anxiety. And they have no community to practice with. They don't know who to turn to for help. So think of how wonderful and blessed we are to have met with the Dharma, to have valid teachers and teachings, to have the interest in this, and really from the depth of your heart and mind rejoice that you have a deep interest in peace and a practice of wisdom and compassion. And he's reminding us to remember to stay away from judging others, to only look inside, that our real enemy is not outside. Our real enemy is our own ignorance, our own attachment and selfish desires, our own aversion and anger and hatred, our own conceit and pride and jealousy, our own distracted mind, that the real enemy is within these things, not somewhere outside. And so tonight we turn our practice to shamatha, to calm abiding, so that we can become more brave, more courageous, more fearless in our practice to meet where it is we get caught with our ignorance or with our selfish desires, with our anger and attachment, aversions cycle, with our pride, and whatever comes up that keeps us from living in our true peace and our true wisdom, breath by breath, moment by moment. He asked us to think about the thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. Obviously, if we were out of suffering completely, we would be fine. We wouldn't need the Buddha's teachings. We wouldn't need the path. And so we know that we're still in what's called samsara, the round of cyclic existence. And every being within an embodied being has suffering, has meeting with conditions that aren't perfect, aren't always 100% the way we wish they would be. And so these four thoughts that help us remember the preciousness of Dharma are called the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. The first is remembering the freedoms and advantages of having a precious human rebirth. There's so many trillions, more than what we've even counted, kinds of life on this one small planet alone. And yet we have the causes and conditions of having a precious human rebirth. And although we say almost 8 billion human beings, still there were so many more kinds of life, just even in the insect world. So we can rejoice that we've created the causes and conditions to have a wonderful human intelligence, to be able to investigate reality deeply. And the second thought is to recognize the truth of impermanence and change. We say the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so the deeper nature of shunyata, of emptiness, is that everything is interconnected, interrelated. There's nothing appearing solidly that we can grasp onto. There's nothing that we can see that's in our daily life or in our own mind, in our own body, that is permanently and always going to be that way. This means things are changing because of emptiness, because of interdependence. And this is also good news. Sometimes it's very painful. We wish we could stop, and just when things feel really perfect, that we could hit a pause button. But then it wouldn't be nice if we couldn't change those things that we really want to change, like getting rid of hatred and anger, getting rid of impatience, getting rid of ignorance, getting rid of our selfish desires. If we couldn't change, then we'd always have to live with those things too. So impermanence holds the opportunity to become free of the nature of suffering. It's not our true Buddha nature. It's just what we're caught up in now. And this is why we practice the Dharma, so that we can become truly free. There is a state of true freedom from suffering. This is the most wonderful news. We also remember the works of karma, so that we're becoming more mindful and more aware of creating good causes and conditions, beneficial and virtuous ones, and avoiding non-virtue. And the fourth thought that turns the mind is remembering the suffering of living beings within samsara. As already mentioned, many, many beings who have no idea of what's happening to them. They're only aware that they feel trapped and they're very suffering, and they can't do anything about it except feel fear, like an animal that knows it's about to be sacrificed and slaughtered. It can hear and see other animals around it. Our teacher, who's from northern India and Ladakh, talks about this because there at the butcher, it's very open, right in the middle of the city. There's a slaughterhouse, and everyone walks by it. And there is a high Muslim population as well as Buddhist population and a small Christian population. And many people are still eating meat. And so there's a goat waiting that can see that there's another goat being butchered. And of course, animals are intelligent and they understand when a goat is crying and bleeding, its voice is carrying panic. And the ones that are waiting in line to be slaughtered understand very clearly what their fate is going to be. And they can do nothing to escape that. Similarly, human beings are caught in many bad, dangerous, ignorant mindsets that lead them to killing, to harming, to abusing. And they also are a little bit like those goats in the line. They have such causes and conditions because of their ignorance, their selfish desires, their own hatred, aversion, fears, their egoic drive that leads to so much suffering. So these four thoughts that turn us to leading to practice pure Dharma for our own benefit and the benefit of others lead us to remember the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth of Buddha taught is the truth of suffering. The second one is why and how suffering arises. The third noble truth is that there's an end to suffering. And the fourth noble truth is that there's a path called the Eightfold Path, that if we follow it, leads us to become free of suffering. So in Buddhism, clearly, this is not about changing the world. This is about changing the only one that we can change, which is our own self. But if we change ourselves well, we may find that we become a very beneficial and positive influence within the world for others' happiness, for others' loving kindness and compassion that becomes more amplified. This we can share, but the only one we can truly change is ourselves. This is why Khenzo Rinpoche says, don't worry about changing the world, just change your own mind. That's enough of a difficult task, as we each know. If we can do that, then we're doing something worthwhile. So the first step of the Eightfold Path starts with the right view, because most of our suffering, although we do sometimes encounter suffering through our physical form, most of the human suffering comes through mental and emotional suffering. So the right view is really talking about needing to understand deeply what's meant by shunyata, or emptiness, this deep connection of dependent arising, how things are deeply, deeply interconnected. So before we get into our shamatha practice, let's take a moment just to take refuge so we can really remember that why we're practicing is that refuge means we have safety from suffering. Refuge, we know in English, means protection. It means something we look for, like if we were in a big storm outside, we go for refuge from difficult weather, we seek shelter inside a building. And so we know we're kind of in the stormy seas of samsara, of this difficult ocean that's created turbulence from these conditions of ignorance and desire and hatred and fears, that these are like a rough sea of samsara. So refuge means, like, our Dharma practice is sometimes considered a raft or something we can come up over on top of to cross the sea of samsara onto this further shore of liberation, the freedom from suffering. So refuge becomes a little bit like our raft, our vehicle that we can use to cross over this ocean of suffering onto the peaceful grounds of liberation. So I don't know if Janet can put the refuge vows and the bodhicitta up on the screen, if you're able to do that. Otherwise, we'll just, sorry to pull you back, but there's maybe some people who don't know it clearly and don't have the Tashi Getzeling booklet in front of them, so they can maybe see the words and say them along. We'll say the first two in Tibetan, and then the third one in English for the refuge and bodhicitta. And we'll say the four immeasurables, the first one in Tibetan, and then the final two in English. Are you able to? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. And as you're saying this, you can visualize your teacher, or you can visualize Shakyamuni Buddha in front of you, or just visualize clear light, whatever essence of Buddhism is your personal way of connecting is the right way to visualize, but we should try to bring to mind a very powerful image of an awakened essence so that when we take refuge, we remind ourselves of an ideal of an awakened mind. So often we take the image of Shakyamuni Buddha, if we can visualize that as a small, like the size of a thumb, out in front of us in arm's length at about the height of our eyebrows. If you have a root teacher, a root lama, you can picture him or her out in front of you. Also someone who's embodying these qualities. If you can't really get a visualization of a person, you can use a Buddhist image like an open lotus flower, but it's very good and powerful to bring this image to mind as you take refuge. You can use His Holiness the Dalai Lama also. People sometimes can remember his lovely image very clearly. So just bring whatever is right for you to mind, and as you take refuge, we'll say this together. Sangye chodam soki chognam la changchu bardu dagni kyabsu chi dagi jinso ki pe sonam ki drola penchir sangye drupar sho. Sangye chodam soki chognam la jangchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi dagi jinso ki pe sonan ki drola penchir sangye drupar sho. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, until enlightened, I seek refuge. Through merit from giving and the rest, to aid all, may I become Buddha. And now we'll say the four immeasurables, and these are called the Brahma Viharas. It means the four qualities. Just as sentient beings will always be immeasurable, we'll never be able to count how many life forms are appearing in any world system. These four qualities, likewise, can be developed immeasurably, expansive to fill all of space. There's no limit to which we can bring these and expand them into our own heart and mind stream. Semchen tamche de wadang de wei gyudang dem hard gyur chi. Semchen tamche dugnel dang dugnel gi gyudang drel ward gyur chi. Semchen tamche dugnel me pe de wadang mi drel ward gyur chi. Semchen tamche ni ring chang dang ni dang drel wei tang yon nam le hard gyur chi. So then we'll say them in English 2 more times. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and hatred. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and hatred. So it's very beautiful. This first wish of all sentient beings having happiness and its causes is the altruistic wish of loving kindness. So this altruistic loving kindness is different from love that we feel for our parents or for our children or for our partner. It's different than the love we feel for our favorite sports team or our favorite food. This is all kind of a selfish or egoic love. There's nothing wrong with that kind of love, but it's not a kind of lasting, deep love. This altruistic loving kindness means we wish this equally for oneself and for everything that lives, because we know that this is what we do have in common with everything that's alive. Everything that lives wishes for happiness. And then the second one, may all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. Everything that lives loves compassion. So if there is suffering, to meet that with compassion, not with judgment, not with criticism, not with judging, saying, oh, it's so crazy. This people don't want to do that. It's so crazy. This one's doing that. Of course, that's not helpful. That's a judgment. But to try to deeply understand through dharmic looking, a dharma lens, why suffering arises. It's because of karmic causes and conditions that grow up out of ignorance, attachment, selfish desire. These create causes and conditions that create the suffering, and nobody wants them. Everybody, of course, wants happiness. But because of heavy, heavy karmic conditions, this isn't possible for everybody to have. This is what is called samsara. And within the samsara, it's not helpful to judge. We need to bring compassion and wisdom that understands why it is the way it is. Compassion will always help. And then may all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss. This is called mudita, endless joy. Joy that has no bounds, because of course, this is our true nature. Like when we were children on the playground, no one stopped and said, I don't want to play with you because you have this skin color, or you believe in that politics, or you're that kind of religion. Little children just go and play with each other, and they're joyful and just happy to play. They know it quite innately. When we're young, we're joyful because we are free of these kinds of concepts. As we grow, and parents and society and religions in many places give us concepts that we start to glom onto, they kind of limit that natural joy. It's really not very helpful to increase that joy. So we're recognizing when we say, may all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss, that our true essence with Buddha nature is sorrowless bliss. Look at His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. You never get too old to outgrow that. And it doesn't mean you can't be a very wise elder and a very wise, even young person. He's been guiding his community, his whole country, since he was the age of 15. You can have both, the wisdom, the compassion, with the joy. When you know the true nature of the reality, it's there all the time. And then the last immeasurable wish, of course, with equanimity. Equanimity here means like a cool-headedness, a harmoniousness, an even-mindedness that's not in any kind of bias, with any kind of attachment or judgment, and that's not in any kind of aversion or hatred. And this is also the natural way. As I mentioned, the young children, they have this very freely. If they see some other children on a playground having fun, swinging, going on the slide, going on the seesaw, they naturally just want to go and play and join in. And often young children, the more the merrier. Then they sometimes start playing other games where you need a team. So this kind of equanimity, where there's an even-mindedness and an open-heartedness, that's a welcoming for all. We never leave anyone outside of our love. We never leave anyone outside of our compassion. So these Brahma Viharas, these four great qualities, we can develop in ourselves every day that we're alive. We should really think we have this opportunity now to bring these qualities out. So before we do a short meditation, I just wanted to play a brief teaching with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, because he's a much more skillful teacher than I am, to talk about peace of mind from a Buddhist perspective. This is from a few years ago.
Must develop within ourselves. We can't buy peace of mind from supermarket or from medication. And now, you see that our life, global level, or national level, or individual family level, or individual level, problem there, endless problem. Buddha described that samsara, the suffering nature, right? And our very existence is in the nature of suffering. Buddha never stated our life is a very happy one. If we are very happy, then no need try to practice dharma and reach nirvana. Not necessary. So therefore, the problem there, you must take for granted that because of the causes of conflict or differences always there, suffering always there. This very body, the basis of illness, basis of problem. Now understand that reality. Meantime, the possibility to overcome these problems, according to Buddhism. So therefore, looking the possibility of cessation of suffering, then you get some kind of hope. And think more that line while you are engaging your worldly life. Then make more balance. That's the only way. So peace must create by yourself through the way. I think basically Buddha's teaching helping us to develop realistic attitude. Problem there. Understand that. Yeah, okay, there's a problem. But I can, because of that problem, once you understand that problem, that problem will not disturb your mind much. If just is a look problem and life is very pleasant, and I'm facing because of that marvelous. Life is very good, very pleasant, very joyful. Yet I'm confronting some unnecessary or some kind of something. In my case is special sort of problem I'm facing. I don't deserve. You see, that kind of attitude is the real causing of our mental problem. If you understand, there are problems. I think 6 billion human beings, including myself, including these Vietnamese, all have some kind of problems. Now I myself last now 51 years as a refugee. There are a lot of problems inside Tibet. If I only look that side, then more disturbances. But we are carrying our struggle truthfully, honestly, transparently. That gives me more inner strength. And more inner strength brings truth, because it brings inner peace, like that. So like that. I think firstly important is your life, your business work must carry with honest. If you yourself little too much telling lies here and here, then you won't be happy. Must carry honestly, transparently, truthfully. Then there's no point to regret. So we must be very realistic approach, and basically our life must be because of that based on truth, honest. These are very important, isn't it?
So thank you, His Holiness. That was from about 12 years ago, but still just as relevant today as it was then, maybe even more so. So there's a beautiful teaching that Kensor Rinpoche would always teach when he was in Maine for the many years that he would come here to teach. And it's to what His Holiness was pointing to about being practical, about facing what we face. And it's true. I mean, this idea of samsara is in the nature of suffering. We have physical bodies and they're going to change no matter what we want to do about that. We can't stop it. But most of what we face is mental and emotional suffering, and we can actually do much more about that. I mean, those things are much easier to change, actually. And this teaching from Shantideva that's really repeated often in the Tibetan teachings is, if there's a problem and a solution, there's no need to worry. If there's a problem and no solution, there's no point to worry. So in the end, actually, there's really no problem. Most of the things that we call a problem, that we worry about, really aren't problems. They're only something we've allowed our mind to be carried away by. Overthinking something, worrying about something that actually, by overthinking and worrying about it, won't change the situation anyway. It doesn't add to our peace of mind, doesn't add to our joy. And so why do we do that? Well, habitually, we maybe develop that out of fear. We developed it out of our ignorance. We weren't really paying attention, that it became a habit. But now with our mindfulness, with shamatha and calm abiding, sometimes we're able to look at these patterns more carefully, to be able to release them through awareness. Because when our mind is coming with a clear recognition that thoughts are just thoughts, they don't have any inherent existence somewhere outside of our mind, and they don't have any inherent existence as the quality of our mind. So remember, we were defining mind as something clear, luminous, that which knows, that's non-physical, that we really can't trace back. Where's the beginning of mind? We really can't say where's the end of mind. We know that we have mind. Everything that lives has mind. We know that because if we look at a corpse, if we look at a dead body, we know it doesn't have mind in it anymore. Mind is that which is animating everything, that which knows, that which is experiencing. But mind is also that which confuses, that doesn't know, that has created a lot of habits, that doesn't see the reality accurately. So there's still kind of an awareness there, even if it's not a helpful one. So that kind of ignorance is also what develops by not knowing the nature and quality of mind, which is clear light, which has these qualities of being able to be developed and purified all the way up to Buddhahood, which is, as His Holiness says, that's why we practice. That's why, if our mind is trained, what we call in Tibetan lojong, mind training. And when we're studying Buddhism, when we're contemplating, when we're meditating, we call that our practice. And we can practice every day. It's not just when we're sitting on the cushion, as His Holiness said, in your business, in your daily life. More people have always been lay people than monastics, realistically. If you think of the Asian world where Buddhism spread, the monastics are a bigger community there, but still many more lay people have always outnumbered monastics. So we can use our practice in whatever way our day-to-day is unfolding. It's not just for monastics. It's not just for sitting in a beautiful shrine room like this, or just sitting at home in your own practice place. It's for wherever our life is leading us. That's where our practice is unfolding. So I have a few little quotes that I want to share from this beautiful book from the Royal Seal of Mahamudra, from Volume 1, A Guidebook for the Realization of Co-Emergence. It's by the third Kamtro Rinpoche, Nawang Kunga Tenzin. It's from Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo's tradition. Mahamudra is really much too high of a practice for most of us to try to take on, but shamatha is the foundation for Mahamudra. And shamatha is not too much for us to take on. That's what we're going to continue on our Monday Maine Moment meditations to go into. And even doing 10 to 15 minutes of shamatha together is a realistic time to practice, because it takes time to develop a very one-pointed concentration. Now, on your own for the rest of the week, and between Monday to Monday, you can continue. And if you feel your practice is stabilizing, you can go a little bit longer, but it's much more advised to start with shorter periods of time to get a good single-pointed concentration practice going. So the first quote I'll share with you is what not to do. Don't do your practice without understanding its meaning. knowing its key points and deriving all its benefits. First, decide that all Dharma teachings and practices ultimately converge into the true meaning of mind, and contemplate the necessity of abandoning all other elaborate diversions. Lord Jowo Atisha said, once your mind stabilizes in single-pointed meditation, do not emphasize physical and verbal spiritual practice. So he's talking about using shamatha as the foundation to build up to Mahamudra, so this much higher Dzogchen practice. So shamatha just means calm abiding. In Tibetan, it's called shinay. In Sanskrit is the word shamatha. Sometimes in English, it's called tranquility, meditation. Sometimes it's called quiescence. It just means really touching into this very natural, peaceful state of mind that we all have. Every living creature has it. And this is why our animals like to join us when we practice shamatha. So we're going to just, for the next maybe 15 minutes, go into a shamatha meditation. First, the most important thing is to sit very comfortably with a very straight spine. This is the first instruction. So check your posture and get really nice and comfortable. You can be sitting in a chair. You don't have to be sitting cross-legged, but just make sure that the spine is straight. So the hips sometimes should be coming forward a little bit, feet flat on the floor if you're in the chair. And just the top of the back of the head should come up a little bit. So you want your chin to come down, not all the way down, not bending, but just down a little bit, so that the back of the neck opens up and this top lifts. So you can imagine that there's a little golden cord lifting the spine up so that the bottom of the spine sinks. You can put a little attention to your tailbone so that that's sinking down, and then the top is rising up. And then the second one is the chin comes down a little bit towards the chest bone. And your hands can be what's called the Jnana Mudra. It can be the left hand underneath the right with the thumbs like this, right at your navel, right below your navel button. Or they can be just with your thumbs touching at the base of your ring fingers with your arms. Here, I'll show you. With your arms straight out to your knees, whatever's more comfortable. So your arms coming straight down with your fingers touching like this, coming off your knees, or sitting with this Jnana Mudra like this, right at your navel, whichever's more comfortable. Then your elbows come out to the side, and you just lightly hold them like this. One of those two positions is recommended for your shamatha. The tip of your tongue will rest lightly on the roof of your mouth behind the teeth, right behind where the palate and the fleshy part meets the teeth. And just the tip of the tongue lightly resting there. Leave the jaw and the face naturally soft, the lips soft, a little bit open, a little smile maybe. That also relaxes the many hundreds of facial muscles so that our face can become more used to smiling, more calm, more responsive, that we invite more joy through the expression on our physical form is important. And now the most difficult part is probably the eyes. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition and shamatha, it's recommended to keep the eyes almost all the way closed, anywhere from half closed to 3/4 closed, but open just a little bit so that we keep awareness of the room, but with a very soft gaze. This starts to help to train our mind so that this frame of mind, this state of mind of shamatha, of quiescence, calm abiding, can stay with us when we're moving throughout the day. Sometimes if we close the eyes all the way, then different images come and lights come and distractions, and it might be very blissful feeling. But this is called nyam in Tibetan. That means distraction, and it's not the experience of single-pointed concentration. And then the object of our meditation will be our breath as we breathe in and out. If you have a difficulty really concentrating, then take your breath as your diaphragm is moving. As you breathe in, your diaphragm and belly expand out, and you can really physically feel the breath coming into the body. And as you breathe in, it expands. As you breathe out, you can feel the contracting muscles and that movement down below the navel and the diaphragm. If you have already a good meditation practice, then take the place right beneath the nose. So we're going to use our nose for breathing, and just focus on the subtle movement of breath and the wind as the wind moves into the body. You can sense the movement and don't follow it into the whole body. Maybe the first few breaths you can notice on the in-breath, the temperature is different of the in-breath. And different on the out-breath. It's a much cooler temperature on breathing in, a much warmer temperature breathing out. So just take a few relaxing breaths and notice the subtlety of breath. And now we'll begin to just notice the movement of breath right beneath the nose. As the object of meditation, counting in the first 21 breaths to settle the mind fully on the object. And when we watch and count, we're watching with our inner awareness, not with our fleshy eyeballs, not with our eye consciousness, which is just gazing softly, almost like in a dream. We're counting with our inner awareness. We're watching with our inner mind. So one breath in and one breath out is counted as one. And we're not in any rush to get to 21, but we want to arrive in a very clear, mindful progression, not being distracted from counting. And as you count, if you lose count, don't worry about it. Just go back and begin again. This is a way to train into single pointed concentration. This is just practice, and it's good practice to go back to the beginning and then come all the way through with a single pointed concentration on just the in and out breath up to 21 to help stabilize the awareness. And once you reach 21, you can stop counting. You don't need to go back into another cycle of counting. Just relax the awareness onto breathing in and breathing out. Expand. In between the new breath of breathing in, there's a natural pause on the out breath, and just rest in awareness. And when a new breath arises, just become aware of breathing in, aware of breathing in, and breathing out, aware of breathing out, and then the natural stillness that arises, aware of resting in awareness. Now let your awareness expand out and connect the space with the sky. Often the mind is compared to a sky-like nature of infinite, expansive clarity, no beginning and no end. And let this sense of spaciousness through the mind absorb down into the body. So that the spaciousness is beneath you, is above you, is on each side of you, is in the cross direction, so that everything is full of a spaciousness, a boundless awareness. If you're feeling a little heavy and too relaxed, try to put more attention on the in-breath, maybe open the eyes slightly more to let more light come in. If your mind's feeling very excited and excitable, put a little more attention on the out-breath to ground into awareness and close the eyes a little bit more. And now to close with just a few moments of guided analytical meditation, something like Vipassana insight, but in Tibetan we call it analytical meditation, is to ask, to explore a bit, what is the nature of this awareness? Where is it located? Who is the one watching? And to start to investigate these questions carefully. And then come back to the shamatha, aware of breathing in and breathing out, and resting and dropping those inquiries that we did shortly with our insight, our analytical. Coming back to our calm abiding. So at your own pace, just come out of that shamatha meditation that had just a little bit of analytical at the end, and bring your mind body awareness back together slowly into your place that you're sitting in. And you can maybe notice in the body where you need to stretch a little bit. Invite yourself to move in whatever way is right for you. And so we're already at the end of our hour together, but we started just a little bit late. So maybe let's take a minute or two to see if any questions or any insights came up that anybody wants to share before we dedicate our merits. Clarence is keeping his comments to himself. That's our Tashi Getzeling fur friend. He's looking quite satisfied, though, I have to say. Does anybody have any question or comment about any part of their practice tonight together, or anything that's not part of our practice that would help you with your practice in the coming week ahead? This would be the opportunity. Okay, then I guess we'll just dedicate. I don't remember, Janet. Do we have the dedication prayers also on the slides? I'm making you work hard tonight, but thank you for doing that.
I have the shortened version of the long life prayers and then the
That-
dedication.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. I'll be 1 minute.
No problem. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezi remain in life till samsara's end. In particular, I pray for the one who knows all the scriptures with the power of his intelligence to have a long life through the solid strength of his mind and his mastery of life in order to benefit the teachings and all beings with his good, wholehearted resolve. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious supreme Bodhi mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Mig me se wei ter chen chen rezi, di me ken pe wang po cham pel yang. Gong chen ke pe zu gen son ka pa. Lo zang drak pe shabla so wade. Oh, sorry, we have it in English there, but anyway, you heard the Tibetan. So that's our practice for tonight. And in particular, we'll dedicate the merits to all the people who are involved now in the difficult situations everywhere around the world, in the Ukraine, as well as in Russia, as well as in Afghanistan, and all many places that there are human to human conflicts and challenges. Most of our biggest challenges, as His Holiness says right now, are human made. So most of all our human solutions have to become human made solutions as well. And this is what we can do through our practice of the Dharma, is see the wisdom and compassion of the teachings and be able to maybe add something in that will be of benefit to help alleviate some of these struggles. I'm going to see there's someone with a question. Heidi, please ask your question. That's fine.
How can we keep this peaceful feeling going throughout the week when we are being tested with all these things and going on in the world?
Well, you know, this little shamatha practice that we just did was only 13 minutes long. And if you can even do a 2 to 5 minute practice, like 2 or 3 times a day, His Holiness has said, this would be very beneficial if you could start your day with a 2 to 3 or 5 minute shamatha practice. If you have a time to do a little bit longer, you could. And then throughout the day, in the middle of the day, do a 2 to 3 minute practice, then before bedtime. And every time be dedicating the merits. And if you can do this next week for 2 to 3 minutes every day, then next week we don't have the Maine Moment. I'm sorry, I'm in the Bahamas and the timing doesn't work out there, but The following week we'll have it, and then the week after that we have Medicine Buddha Puja on Monday. But you'll have these recorded. You can always go on to the Tashi Gets Ling website, or I think they're being saved actually on the YouTube channel now. Janet and Smirta, our webmaster, were kind enough to create a YouTube channel for these recordings. You can look at this recording again. You can follow along with it. Sometimes it's easier at the beginning to have a guided meditation. But as much as you can build shamatha of calm abiding, this single-minded focus on the breath. We like to use breath because we have it with us all the time. It's a very practical object. The Buddha taught that as the main object of the meditation because it is with us all the time. Is
Thank
that, you have another question or?
No, I think that helps.
Okay. Yeah, good.
you.
Thanks for the question.
Tudache.
Juleju.
Tudache.
So thank you, everybody. Have a lovely week ahead. I want to just remind people that on Thursday is the first day of Losar. So generally on Wednesday in the Tibetan practice, Wednesday will be the last day of this year, which was the year of the iron ox, the year 2148 in the Tibetan calendar. Tibetans follow the lunar calendar. And so Wednesday is a very good day to do purification practices. If you can take precepts, that would be great, meaning you really agree to only eat breakfast and then you don't eat for the rest of the day, or you take your precepts, you remember what your lay precepts were that you took of no alcohol, no drinking, no stealing, no killing, no lying, no sexual misconduct. If you're a meat eater, it would be a really wonderful day Wednesday. Just be a vegetarian for the day and think about that you're really giving back those lives that you normally, maybe you eat meat and you don't think about it, but His Holiness the Dalai Lama was born on a Wednesday in this lifetime. So up in Dharamsala, all the restaurants on Wednesdays, even the Tibetan ones still serve meat, but on Wednesday they only serve veg. So this Wednesday, it would be a good day. You could purify and offer to just eat vegetarian. You could eat less, you could do longer meditation, you could clean your room, clean your house, just cleaning, like I think I'm going to, Doreen's going to help me clean our shrine room here. And then on Thursday is the first day of Losar. We don't have anything scheduled for that, but on Saturday, we have a special Losar practice we're going to do, and it will be on Zoom from 10 in the morning until noon with what's called a Guru Puja. So it's a special puja that we do for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for Khenzo Rinpoche, and for Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, who are my main gurus, who are Tashi Getse Ling main gurus that we're following. And that will be about an hour practice, and then we'll have a little bit of meditation and some rejoicing. We're big rejoicers here. So we are in samsara, but we want to go towards nirvana. We want to go towards the non-abiding nirvana, which means rejoicing that every living thing has a Buddha nature. And even if the Buddha said all the insects will realize their Buddha nature, we have a much better opportunity ourselves to become free of suffering in this very lifetime as practitioners. So we do rejoice. So thank you, everybody. Please join us on Saturday if you're able to. We look forward to seeing you again. Have a beautiful week.